Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, my friends, wherever in this wonderful world you may be today, or whichever dimension you may be visiting us from. Welcome to another episode of 40 Going on 4, the show that helps you reconnect with your inner child who you lost long ago, that inner child that was filled with joy, wonder, creation, inspiration, and the ability to wolf down a whole bunch of sweets without an appointment at the endocrinologist. So I am here today with an incredible guest. I have the great Anna Herber with me. Now, I'm going to talk Anna up a little bit before I give her an opportunity to talk herself up, which she's too modest to do that, but I'm happy to do it for her. She is the founder of Insight Copywriting. She is a brand voice strategist, basically meaning if you have a story to tell, Anna is the person you need to work with to get that story out to the world. Anna, is that fair to say?
Yeah, I would say that's where this has all ended up heading.
Awesome. And as you can hear, she has a far better accent than I do, which already means the show has been elevated dramatically in the last 10 seconds. Anna, thanks so much for coming out today.
Thank you so much for having me on, Jeff. So I'll introduce myself to your lovely audience that I hear are possibly tuning in from all over the world. Let us know where you're coming from in the comments because I'd love to know. So I'm Anna Herber. I'm currently streaming to you from the west of England, from Devon. I'm a freelance writer. I've been in the game for 6 to 7 years. And this year, after a really terrible year last year of losing my mother, I have followed the voice within. And now I've pivoted my business to work particularly with coaches, healers, and therapists on their story. But what I'm really interested in is helping every single human being on this planet get clear on their innate sense of purpose, who they are, and to share it with confidence, because we have so much stuff in this world telling us that we're not allowed to be who we are. And we're all absolutely fantastic when you go deep enough. So we need to figure out why. Why can't we just do that and be that?
Why can't we do that? And that's a good question we're going to jump right into today. Why can't we? Now, we talk a lot about stories on this show, and we talk a lot about that, in society, and we talk a lot about that on LinkedIn in between every time we ask somebody to agree. But these stories, they just anchor us down and they trap us and they put us in this tunnel of limited possibilities. So the first question I have for you, Anna, and you work with people and their stories all the time. Why do we take them so seriously? Why?
Why do we take them so seriously? Well, I'm thinking right in this moment about when you go to a job interview and someone asks you to tell the story there, and you have to tell them about your exams and about all of the jobs you've done so far. And so the lens that we are used to telling our story is how much we've achieved in the society that we're currently in. And when most of us feel like we fall short in some kind of way, because society tells us that we fall short in some kind of way over and over again, I think that all of us are like constantly trapped in this cycle of not feeling enough. And the way to liberate yourself from this like very serious and constricting story that most of us grew up with is to tell yourself that you can be whatever you want, right? And that you get to decide who you want to be, and you get to nurture the parts of yourself that you think are worth it. And I think you're right. This question is framed in a way. Why do we take them so seriously? And it's often like, the story of our lives feels really heavy and grave and serious, and like it's all gone wrong somewhere, and we can't figure out where and why. But yeah, but life is meant to be fun. I think the more fun you have, the more creative you are, and the more chances you take, and the more you enjoy your days on Earth. So why do we take them so seriously? I guess because we also feel like we're aware that we're here and we've got one shot. And it does feel like an overwhelming responsibility at times. But like with anything, the more lightly you take life, the easier it is, and the more easier it is to think creatively and be original.
There's something really magical about that, isn't it? When we just take that one step back, and we can't take 10 step backs at one time because that's called psychosis. And we do something to people who have that. But that one half a step back of, what if I just sprinkle a little bit of magic and a little bit of crazy on this story? Just a little bit. Just one little pattern break. Just make it a little weirder than it normally is. And where's the magic in that? Like, haven't seen that in your own life.
So I'm really enjoying this phrase that's going around on the internet right now, romanticize your life, because I think that's what it takes. Because when in your day to day, when you've got to like do the laundry and do tasks for your job and go to the grocery shop store and like do all the really boring stuff, it's easy to get like weighed down by monotony and to think that your life isn't special or worthwhile, but you're actually living your experience of the universe right now. So I think, yeah, just like injecting that bit of fun into things. Like, you could be doing the laundry or you could be singing a song to yourself while you're doing it. Or I think it's like creating those pockets of fun in your day that mean you start to enjoy your own company more again. And when you enjoy your own company, everything can be a bit more of an adventure.
Join your own company. So what you're really telling me is that I need to start having these shows as just solo operations and start talking to myself, have myself on as a guest. Just have this moment of
Jeff, I mean, I'm absolutely sure you could, and that people would watch it.
That would be it. You know what? I might do that one week, like just for the hell of it, just as an academic exercise and just talk to myself back and forth. But why would I do that when I have all these wonderful guests?
Solo podcast at some point, but that's when you really get into it. Like, how much can I make myself laugh and see if other people will?
Every day. And we have all these wonderful folks here in the chat from Texas. I'm going to go out on a limb and say I have no idea who that is, but I'm glad you're here anyway from Texas. Got Lori rocking the great Tar Heels State in North Carolina. Lynn is from Crew. Help me out. Where's Crew?
Crew is, oh God, in the
Oh, don't tell me you have to Google it.
It's in Cheshire where my mum is from. So,
okay.
Hey, Lynn. Good to see you.
Good times. And Maria's coming to us from sunny California today. Yes. Got the drop on me. Other people, that other people will laugh. Now, Lonnie Ray is somebody who can make me laugh every day, no matter what's going on, because I think Lonnie is one of these people, and she had this incredible thing on. You should definitely connect with her if you're not, about some of the things that she's gone through and stories that any other person not only would have taken seriously, but would have let crush them. And yet Lonnie found a way to transmute and to move through it. Actually, two of you should absolutely connect. And Lonnie now has this incredible orientation towards life. It is this, just bring it on. Let's have some fun. Let's just sprinkle joy on everything.
Oh, it's just so inspiring. It's like some people who've been through the most unimaginable and deep, intense suffering often come back to a place where they realize what's truly important and what really gets you through. And that is humor, connection, making time to save a life. So I think when people like really have been like through this bell curve of like going down into the depths and they come back out the other side, those are people we need to look to, because they've often figured out how to prioritize things that get you through this existence.
Absolutely. If somebody's going to take us through the woods and through a thick, dense forest, that person needs to have the sharpened machete of experience, and they need to be the ones to just slice their way through. Otherwise, they won't be able to get through. There's no other way. And they are, in so many ways, the Pied Pipers of our world, back to a place of joy, back to a place of happiness, because they've experienced the contrast. They know what it feels like to take their story too seriously, to let their trauma weigh them down. They felt it, but they've pushed through, and it lets us all know, hey, maybe we can push through too. Maybe we're not that different from them, but we are that different from Lonnie. She's better than all of us. I mean, that's just real talk, but she's amazing. And so are you, for that matter. Anna Herbert is an absolute legend. This is such a treat.
Thanks, Jeff. And what you were saying really reminds me of what I'm here in Devon to work on this week. And you mentioned the word psychosis at the start of this recording. And my story is 3 rounds of psychosis in my 20s that took over a year of my life. And during the time that I had psychosis and this mental health breakdown, I thought I was dead and like not in reality anymore. And that's as serious as you can get, right? Everything felt 10 out of 10, serious, morbid, and all of the light was drained from my perspective of life. I think coming through that, you realize that, it's trauma. It's trauma that pulls you down into that place. It's trauma that tells you that you're not worth anything, that your story is somehow worse than everyone else's. and that you are the worst person on the planet. I think, when we're in the like dark night of the soul phase, so many of us feel that, don't we? Like we are unworthy and we are not in the collective. And healing from that is realizing that you can connect and that you can create and that you can save your day. So that's what I'm here to work on this week, figuring out how to tell
Beautiful.
the story.
And we have a great question, which will lead us right into it. So, Anna, tell us your story. How did you bounce back from that? How were you able to move through that? Because a lot of people don't come back from that.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, it was like really deep psychosis and depression, and it was like 10 years worth of suppressed trauma that all came out in my world in one go. And I think the worst part about being stuck there is that because negative thinking breeds more negative thinking. So like when you're this far down in the cycle of I'm unworthy and oh look, my life is falling apart, that's evidence of what a bad person I am. So it's like this catch 22 that can just keep going and going and going. And then eventually I think you need to find an anchor or like something to attach to that's going to pull you out of this self-fulfilling prophecy of I'm not worth anything and my reality sucks, because then it will continue to suck. And for me, eventually I just had to choose to believe that love is real and that the love of my family and friends can be relied on, and that love as just a general principle is real. And these days, after various psychedelic experiences and the sort of spiritual journey I've been on since then, now I believe that love is the organizing principle of the universe, and that basically the more you lean into that, the easier your life gets. So that's what pulled me out, really. Just that choice to just believe, even though I didn't feel like believing.
That's the tough part, isn't it? Because we've been so conditioned by this very, very cynical society and culture and zeitgeist that we're in, that the idea of love is just too cool for school. You can't do it. And you're some kind of a fool if you believe it. And you get laughed out of the room by the prevailing intelligentsia of the day. And yet, when you just quiet things just for a minute, you just find yourself naturally gravitating back to it. You almost float back into it. And you wake up back into it, and you have this incredible moment of, wow, okay, so this has been here all along. It's always been here. And yet I let all the noise and all the distractions completely take me away from it. But you found your way to the other side, and that's really cool. There's another great question here from Maria. She's asking, so who pulled you out? And it seems like you kind of floated back, but were there people in your life that you were able to lean on this journey coming back?
Yeah, I had an amazing counselor who I'm writing about at the moment, and she was a spiritual counselor. And I'm writing about the sort of mainstream way that these conditions are treated here in the UK and the NHS, which is very, very clinical. The broken brain model. Like there's just something wrong with your brain. Something went wrong somewhere, and now you're broken. And we will give you what you need, and eventually you'll be fixed again.
Yeah.
Rather than there are major things wrong with society that mean that people do not know how to heal. People do not know how to have a concrete sense of self-worth. People are not encouraged to live a life filled with purpose and meaning, and we're all convinced that we're not actually that creative and that we can't create the things that artists can. And I think so we're all just kind of a bit starved in this front. And I think the world of spirituality and this spiritual counselor kind of showed me that that this conditioning is there, and what trauma is, like how trauma and conditioning convinces you that you're someone you're not, and has you trapped in this net of belief systems. So I think the best thing that she did for me when I went to see her when I was lost in psychosis was she gave me a really long hug. And it was the kind of maternal hug that even in the place that I was in where nothing felt real and I thought that this reality was like a really cruel simulation, I felt it. I think that is the power of love, and not being afraid to give that to people. Like, even though she was holding space for me as a counselor, her style was connection and love, because that's what we all need ultimately. It's just what we need.
Wow, it really is. And I'm feeling that hug here from across the pond. And I'm giving that hug to everybody here in the comments and giving that hug to everybody here watching. Just giving you all that big bear hug. I'm going to squeeze you. I'm going to crush you. You'll be gasping for air. But I'm giving you that hug because I know a lot of people need it right now. A lot of people really need that hug. And you talk about what we're starving for. I'm starving for a sandwich right now. So I'm going to get up and walk out of here. If you can hold down the fort for like 5 or 10 minutes, I'll be right back. It's a great spot just around the corner. If you can just interact with these people and do your thing, we'll be fine.
No, great. You off. Yeah. So, yeah.
So
I've got a question. I think we should address, I can't say the name, but there's a question. How can we wake up without dread?
Yeah, I wanted to highlight this one. So this is one a lot of people ask, and I would not have had the answer to this a few years ago. I have a perspective now. Anna, I would love to hear how you answer this.
Oh, yeah. And thanks for sharing that as well. And it's really common. So just know you're not alone in it.
Yeah.
But something that I think is really important to say is that I think the human body naturally wants to wake up in a state of dread. And you know, we have negativity bias, which means that we're more likely to focus on negative things in our environment because it keeps us safe. It kept us safe for a long time, you know, like, oh, there might be someone out the door, better go and look. But you know, in our modern world, it's not that helpful. So I think it's about, for me, it's like a morning practice of finding positive things to anchor onto when you wake up, like the gratitude practice, like writing down 5 to 10 things you're grateful for, to force your brain to think of positive things that's going to create those happy brain chemicals. And then for me, it's like moving my body in the morning in some way. You have to get energy flowing around your body. Whatever, even just like gentle stretching, like touching your toes, just anything at all. Like putting I always put my yoga mat out just to force me to remember, like, do it. Because if you wake up and then just sort of sit there on your phone or on your laptop, you're not giving your body that chance to wake up. So yeah, for me, it's like self-care in the morning and having a morning routine, even something so simple. If you do it enough times, your brain starts to take it as a cue, like, oh, this is how we're waking up today. Like, we're choosing how we feel when we wake up. So
that's it. We're choosing. We're training the animal.
Yeah, that's it. I do it all the time. You know, even though life is really good right now, some days I wake up and my mood is just foul for no reason, and then you have to nudge yourself back into, actually, in this moment, I am safe. I have opportunities. I have this. I have this.
And it takes training.
What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I love this from Lana. You know, I keep repeating, I am divinely guided, connected, and protected. And if you're not in that energy, I know this sounds like a lot of woo fluff right now. And again, I think of myself, I would have laughed this out of the room a couple of years ago, and then I would have written some crazy biting satire piece about it. And I know, and so I get it. I get it. If you're somebody who's looking at this, you're looking at this comment, you're listening to this conversation, like, I get it. I see you. Legit, I see you. I understand it. But I'm also here to tell you, you may not always feel that way. And there may be a catalyst in your life that may bring you back to the light. And that can happen if you just let go of the story. And these are where coming back to where these stories anchor us down. If you wake up every day with a feeling of dread, it's because there's a story you're telling yourself, a story your nervous system is telling yourself about what you screwed up here, what you're in danger from today, and it's just trying to protect you. Hell yeah, you'd feel dread. How couldn't you? So I get it. I see you. And I know, and I know you've been there too.
I think we've all been there, right? You know, it's just, I know that feeling so well. And I also know that, yeah, affirmations, they do work. You know, like, it's like filling space in your brain. I like to think of it as affirmations. You know, you're taking up time in your brain where you could be thinking about something you failed at or something that's going on in the world that terrifies you, with a positive thought of your choosing, and then your brain experiences it. Like, you know, you're filling your brain, you're literally filling your brain with things that make you feel good.
Yeah.
So they do work.
You're writing a story every single day, right? You're rewriting it every single day. And the question is, are you gonna, when you rewrite it, and we think it's a continuation, but each day is this new chapter. So is the chapter going to be a simple continuation of the previous ones, or is this going to be the pivot in the story? That's a decision you can make every single day. And I love to have this little friend of mine handy, Gray Sports Almanac from Back to the Future 2. Many of you remember it. And this was the turning point in the movie, when Biff got the almanac, he made the bets. It changed the course of Hill Valley, and an alternate 1985 came up. So every single day is your almanac day. And every single day you have the decision. Am I going to the good 1985 or am I going to the Biff Tannen alternate 1985? And you get to choose that.
This is a really interesting suggestion, Jeff. Like, I think we don't think we realize that we can change the course of our fate every day. Like, I saw something brilliant a while back, and it's like, you know, we're obsessed with the idea of going back in the past and changing the entire future, but we don't think that changing something in our present is going to dramatically affect our future. You know, and it will, but it is those tiny things that you choose to do in a day. Spending 10 minutes planning a creative project rather than just worrying about the fact that you haven't done it yet. Like, those 10 minutes of actually taking action on it rather than berating yourself for not having done it yet. You know, and when you berate yourself over something, when you spend time in your head doing that, you're kind of setting yourself backwards, aren't you? You know, because you're constructing this story for yourself that I can't do this, I can't be this, I'm not good enough to do this, I will never do this, is how it feels. And what we need to be doing is just like changing that internal monologue. Whenever you catch it, then you've got to flip it and change it into, what could I do? Or what evidence is there in my life that I can do this?
That's it. And it comes back to being the author of your own story. You realize you have the pen, and you always have the pen. Dan certainly had it. You know, this is a great, I mean, think about this, right? Surviving cancer got me past a lot of dread I used to feel. It's a comment by Dan. Grateful now for every day that I have. This is approaching each day with that pen. It's like I can be a hostage to the old story, which is I had cancer, and you could live in the dread of what if it comes back? What if I'm that? Or, well, how about that? I'm still here. How do you like that? What a hell of a day this is going to be now.
Yeah, congrats, Dan.
My man.
Yeah, I think when people have quite literally stared death in the face and realized that, you know, every day on this earth really is a gift, then it tends to short circuit a lot of the time wasting and the worry that we do. My mum had cancer, and she finally started painting for the first time in her life. And it was amazing to see, because I never realized that she wanted to paint or that she was an artist. And it took stomach and bowel cancer for her to get paints out and just start playing and like putting paint on canvas. It's amazing to witness.
That's awesome. And it just probably just flowed right through, right? It just flowed through. And she said, let's just go. Let's just go. Let's just do it. She had the opportunity, and she recognized that opportunity.
Yeah, she used it to push past resistance, and she passed away last year. But I think I now used this realization of mortality to push past a lot of my own resistance this year and start working on my writing projects that I've been worrying about and agonizing over for a really long time. And I think that what's changed, other than having this big life experience that's made me realize, right, I really need to do this while I have time. I think it's just I've actually gotten better at planning and like giving myself what I need to feel less anxious about the things I want to do. It's like taking little baby steps at a time. Like, okay, I'm going to go and talk to this person about it. Then I'm going to write down a step-by-step structure so I don't feel overwhelmed. And it's like, and then you can really do it brick by brick, right?
Yeah. Brick by brick is the key. This is a great comment here by Patrick, who I will publicly apologize to in front of everybody today for interpreting his dream on Telegram. It was simply meant to be a forum where we just present the dreams we had and everybody can just listen to them and everybody take them in. And I said, I'm going to jump right in and be a know-it-all. And I decided to dissect the whole damn thing, and I just got into it. So my bad, man. I got you.
Yeah, only you can interpret your own dreams, really.
That's so true.
We all have our own connection to the collective unconscious.
That is for sure.
Right.
But this is a great comment. Contrast is everything. And so we think about this concept of, we wake up every day with dread, right? We dread the day. Okay, cool. That's fine. You can dread the day, but understand the dread is the catalyst back to the light. The dread is the contrast, because you can never appreciate all the great things in your life that you have and the great things that are still to come unless you've gone through that hell, unless you've experienced that contrast. So look at that as it's that slingshot. It's going to pull you all the way back, and you think this is where you're stuck, but it's just getting ready to release you and propel you that way. I've been given absolution. This is a great day in my life. August 15th. Mark it down. I've been let off the hook. Appreciate you. See, this is what happens when you live in Miami. Life's just good. It's just good. You're happy. You're just having a good old time. You just let things slide left and right. Got it.
Yeah, let's just all take it a little bit less seriously, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And yes, this will be replayed, so you can jump back on anytime, my dear LinkedIn user friend. Come on down. And yeah, new story. That's just it. Pivot. We use that word a million times in 2020. But Anna, what was the moment in your life when you realized I have to change? And it's not even an option anymore. I have to change.
I remember I celebrate the date of it every year, 27th of December, 2 days after Christmas. I was in my third round of psychosis, and I was so tired this time. And I just thought, it's over for me. It's just, I'm done. And then my my friend forced me to go and spend Christmas with his family. And he wouldn't take no for an answer. They were all really just extrovert and playing loads of Christmas games, and I really didn't want to be there. But being around humans having fun forced me to realize that, yeah, we don't have to take it so seriously, and that we just need to like get on with being in it and enjoying the story. So I got a job in a coffee shop, and that was a huge step, because I think I just had to like surrender my ego a bit at that point, in that, I just needed to get back in the world and to show the universe that I was willing to work and just willing to play the game, like willing to live the story. And then a month later, a freelance writing gig fell in my lap without me even looking. And that was the beginning of my business. So I think
Wow.
the change, if I could summarize that change, it's showing that I was willing to show up and do the work, and to like to push myself, really. And then the kind of opportunity that I didn't even realize I was manifesting came to me.
Wow. That's powerful stuff. And I've heard a lot of stories like that. My own story mirrors that in a lot of ways too, of this moment of surrender, this moment of, I am open to a different type of story.
Yeah.
I'm open
Yeah.
to it now. I don't know what it's going to look like, but I'm open to it. And universe, show me what you got.
And it's like a combination of humility with believing in yourself more. You have to kind of be humble and surrender and say, right, okay, I'm just willing, I'm going to do it, I'm going to stop resisting. But then you have to celebrate yourself and take advantage of the opportunities of being yourself that are there as well.
I take advantage of myself all the time. He's such a sucker and he never sees it coming. That's inspiring stuff. Now, and so you got this freelance writing gig. And at that point, did you feel it was a reinforcing phenomenon that was happening, where these things just started to kind of build on each other after a while, and the next thing you know, you're on this path that was just unrecognizable from where you started?
So I think what happened is, to make sure my mental health kept improving, I got a morning routine together. And I realized, okay, I need stability and structure in my life, and I need to take care of myself extremely well to make sure that I kept improving. So then I got really into like hydration and exercise and eating great and sleeping well. Like, I think a lot of episodes of psychosis could be solved by those things in the first place. And a lot of mental health conditions generally, like our bodies, our minds exist in our bodies. So that was change number one. And then change number two is I started meditating and journaling. And I think when you have practices like that in your life, you are open to whatever it is that this intelligence that wants to direct you through your subconscious, but you have to be open to it. And like journaling, like learning how to just put your thoughts on paper is a really great way to learn how to tap into that. And I think meditating, like just learning how to be in the present moment and quiet your mind down, also a really great way to clear out the crap that's on top and get to this deep well of wisdom that is underneath, that exists in all of us. And then, like, let's be honest, and then weird stuff starts happening. Like,
Mhm.
then coincidences, synchronicities, then your intuition's going to start activating, and you're going to start making the right moves at exactly the right time when you listen to that. So, while I built my business with a lot of grit and determination, and like all of like the cold emailing and the figuring it out and the making mistakes, eventually there's also been a lot of like following my gut and my intuition, and particularly with where my business has evolved to now. I think just before the pandemic I started becoming really obsessed with the idea that we all have an innate purpose inside us, or we have like some kind of special frequency and like special calling that we can tap into, and that the more that you start to take it seriously and listen and align your life with it, the easier everything gets. And it's felt absolutely mysterious to me, and pretty much overwhelming. But then I found that the more you just take steps in that direction, things pick up momentum.
I think that's something that is so underrated and overlooked. And I'm so glad you mentioned that, because I want everyone back home, wherever home is. This is I on LinkedIn from all over the world. This is great. But everybody who's here with us right now and everybody who's watching on the replay, I want you to just rewind that for a minute and really take that in again, about the compounded exponential impact it will have once you give yourself over, because it's not just going to be one little thing that happens. It's going to be a whole sequence of things, and each one's going to be more profound than the last. And it all comes from what Anna was saying. You tap into that universal well of wisdom. You let it just swallow you whole, and you go for the ride. That's it.
Yeah, I'm so glad you've underlined this, Jeff, because I think I want to tell as many people as possible about this, like with the rest of my life, that there is something there for you that you can be executing, devoting your life to, that's going to make you feel really good while you're doing it. And that it's going to be, and that this is kind of what I'm doing in my business right now. I'm helping people who are they've kind of already figured out what their thing is, but and I help them figure out how to do more with it and get clearer about it by going into their story. So I think our lives have clues for us about what our purpose is. It's like our fascinations, what we loved when we were children,
Mm.
and what lights us up. Like, what do you love talking to people about? What do you love talking to people about at parties? What do you wish you could do if you had loads of money and loads of
Mm.
time? It's usually around those areas, right?
I think we overcomplicate it, right? A lot of people ask this question, why am I here? What's my purpose? So let's just ask it again. And is there a simple answer to that? Why are we here, and what is our purpose?
Oh god, that just made me want to tear my hair out at one point, like that question.
I'll
Like,
tear whatever's left of it out
no.
then for that.
But and if you ask me now, I mean, I was journaling about it today. I'm
Mm.
still not 100% clear, but I do know for a fact that like doing work that feels meaningful to you is always a step in the right direction. And so when I've got a friend who's like in depression, or like really feeling lost basically right now, and they ask what they should do, I say try some volunteering, like just get out there and do something that feels worthwhile, because even just doing that and like giving something back to the universe and the people around you, to human beings, it's gonna, like, it creates a reward system, I'm pretty sure. And
Yeah.
something's gonna come back, like some piece of inspiration or some gesture of a right direction from that.
Yeah, it's First of all, let's all welcome back the great Ken Dunner to LinkedIn. Kenny was banned for, I think, the 87th time the last 5 months for Lord knows whatever reason. But welcome back, Kenny. It is never the same without you, my friend. And, that's something that I'd love to chew on for a bit. This idea of what happens when you kind of give yourself over and it starts giving itself back over to you. It's this law of reciprocity, this law of attraction, all these things that come together. I think it comes from, and I'd love your perspective on this idea of we are not separate from the whole. And the more we act like we are, the more it will act like it is too. And it's an act, it's all an act. But if we say we're apart from each other, we're apart from the whole, the universe is like, all right, well, look, if you want to play that game, I'll play it with you. And then guess what? Everyone you see in traffic is going to cut you off and is going to tailgate you and is going to take your spot. And people are going to be rude to you and they're going to get your orders wrong and they're going to hassle you and all these things are going to happen. But the minute you say, I'm part of everything, the opposite starts to happen. Let's talk to that a little bit.
Oh my God. Yeah, it's so true, isn't it? I think about this a lot with scarcity versus abundance mindset. If you're into the idea of working with abundance, with your money and changing the way you feel about it. But, when you're in that kind of scarcity mode, you don't want to share the last slice of your pie with anyone. You're like, no, this is all me. This is all for me. I want to enjoy this. But when you're in that kind of abundant flow, you're like, hey, grab a spoon. Let's share this thing together. And you enjoy that moment with someone because you know that there's always going to be more. And I think, and then I think when you're in that place of generosity, you end up having more experiences with others and more moments of connection. But yeah, I guess it's natural to kind of want to hoard, and we also have to protect ourselves and our time, so it can be something complicated to navigate sometimes. But all I know is that I've been working with this in my business a lot this year. I have a coach, Dan Bentley, who's been encouraging me to give more, to receive more, and so I've been playing with this in my sales process, and all I can say is that it 100% works.
So when you're coming at your prospects without coming at your prospects.
So can you help someone? Can you help someone straight away? Can you? So I do this thing where I go on someone's profile and I just send them a short video, giving them some instant reflections and something that's going to help them right now. So I try and guess what their story is and guess the areas, just kind of intuit where they could be talking about themselves more or sharing more of a certain kind of story. So try and help someone straight away. And then if they don't go ahead, the worst thing in the world that's happened is that you've helped someone and it's taken 5 minutes.
That's just it. And the juju you've put out there now is just going to make its way through the ether and eventually come back around to you in some interesting, creative way that you can never see coming. And that, that's the fun part about it. Who would want to know how the story ends while you're in the middle of the story? To me, that just sounds boring.
So I've been thinking about this in terms of creative projects and posting on LinkedIn and storytelling, because I think a lot of us shy away from telling our story or from talking about ourselves because we feel like we're being selfish and self-involved. And we're like, oh, I'm just being a big ego monster. And sure, maybe sometimes we're like, our egos are hungry and we're looking to fill them with tasty nourishment and validation from our audience. But actually, sharing your story from a place of a desire to help is completely different. And I think a lot of us could do with being a bit more fearlessly visible and just acknowledging that we have interesting stories that are potentially really valuable for people around us, and that sharing. And for example, as an author, Jeff, you know this, right? We can shy away from writing about ourselves or writing the stories that we have in our heads. We think, who's going to want to hear that?
Yep.
Potentially someone.
There's always one. There's one person. And I remember with each book that I've written, I had this moment of, if one person reads this and is moved by it, then mission accomplished. And I've only really started to believe that recently. I told myself that at first, but with this last one, I really meant it. And I really felt that, because something became so incredibly apparent to me, which is that if we are all one, which we are, all one masquerading as the many, we're the ocean masquerading as the waves, If you put one thing out there that can raise one person's vibration, you have raised the vibration of the whole. You don't need to sell 10 million copies. I'm going to, by the way. I'm just saying, putting that out there. But you don't need to. You don't need to.
Raise 10 million vibrations.
10 million vibrations. But you only really need the one. You need the one because I'm also a believer in the multiverse. I believe if you move that one person, then you've just created an alternate timeline where the moving of that one person has moved the whole. And that becomes the greatest book ever written in some other timeline. And then you can shift into that. Maybe you come back around and experience it again. But it's not about that. It's about how do you let it flow through you to somebody else, and don't stop it with self-doubt, and don't stop it with self-negative talk and all that stuff. So you're writing memoirs right now, right? Let's talk about that. Let's put that out there right now. Anna Herbert is writing her memoirs.
Yeah, I am. And just like you say, Jeff, I've been thinking about that exact idea while I'm away here, that when we start a project, we think, oh, but what if it doesn't sell well? And oh, I've got to promote it on social media. And we get all worried about that stuff, instead of thinking, wouldn't it be amazing if one person read my memoir? Say as an example, one person saw something I made, and then they felt more confident and excited about their own lives and their own possibilities because of that. And like you say, it's a ripple effect, because if you affect one person, then they are going to go on to affect other people in a positive way. So yeah, it's never just about the one, even within this universe. It's about all of the things that they go and do as on like the chain of events from that.
It's like, would you rather be, wide or deep is that question they ask a lot in these things. I think both is a good answer, but I think it doesn't have to be mutually exclusive, because let's say you write something and I think about LinkedIn posts all the time when it comes to this. So there's a lot of posts out there, and these posts, and we talk about visibility and meaningful visibility. Sometimes there's, to be generous, less meaningful visibility. And there's, the just cause selfie with no actual message whatsoever, and it gets 200,000 likes and whatever. Okay, so you're very wide, but whose vibration have you raised? What impact have you made? Have you made anybody think? Have you made anybody laugh? Have you made anybody cry? Have you moved the needle vibrationally at all? So this is something that we creatives go through all the time. We want to do both all the time. So I always say, err on the side of deep, err on the side of getting through to that one person. And you never know where that's going to go. And as you're writing your memoirs now, what is the spirit that's driving this for you?
I've thought about this a lot, because I have been lost in my head a bit of thinking like, oh, but it's just my story, and I've, who wants to hear it? But then I think actually that so many people, as we've talked about, are feeling lost in their lives. And, our world is really complex and stressful. Now, like, yes, our ancestors had it harder in so many ways. Like, we do have flushing toilets and grocery stores and Wi-Fi. But, we have like this kind of existential pressures that we're under, and the advance of technology that is hijacking our nervous systems and making us so stressed and overwhelmed. So yeah, it's financially hard. Like, we're in this financial system where things could be so much better and fairer, and they're not. So I think that is my why, really. I think we need people to feel resourced. I want human beings to feel like their lives are less stressful and more creative. And I think to get there, you have to really take charge of your mental health, and your self-care. You have to resource yourself amply. It's like you have to take charge of all, it's all that little stuff: the hydration, the sleep, the food, how much fun you're having, how you're operating your brain. It's all of these things add up into how resourced you are. And I think, when I had my breakdown, I didn't know any of this.
Yeah.
I didn't know that I didn't know that you had to look after your mental health. I was 23. And I think a lot of people, still end up there, and they're looking at their lives and they're thinking, why am I not where I want to be? And it all comes down to how well do you treat yourself, because no one else is going to do that for you. So I guess so this book is, I want to show all of the ways that it went wrong for me, and then how I clawed my way back, and not just just clawed my way back to, like, normal stability, working any job. Like, how I looked at life and thought, I want a business and an income that keeps me free. I want to learn how to be creative and create the things that I want to create, regardless of fear. I want to pick up the hobbies that make me feel happy. So I got into hula hooping and roller skating and just stuff that makes me feel silly.
I love that.
Take life's a bit less
Love
serious.
that. When I hear hula hoop, and this is a total tangent, so cut me off, but this is just a fun story. Back when I visited a friend of mine who used to be a rodeo cowboy down in Central Florida, he invited me out to one of his shows, and they had something called the hula hoop competition, which he signed me up for. Now, here I am thinking it's an actual hula hoop competition. All right, I'll go embarrass myself, whatever. So they call my name. I get down into the main area, and there are a dozen hula hoops in the middle. So I'm standing in the middle of a hula hoop. Well, it turns out it is not a twirling hula hoop competition. It is a bullfighting hula hoop competition. And they release bulls one at a time, and you have to stand in your hula hoop in order to win. And the last person standing is the winner. Now, you are able to fight off the bull as it's coming at you, but you cannot leave the hula hoop. Needless to say, as a kid who grew up in New York City, this was not something I had any real formal training for. And I will never think of hula hoops the same way ever again. Long story short, I did not win, but I did make the Final Four. To this day, I feel like I should get a plaque just for that. But it was an experience. And so anybody out there, if you're ever at a rodeo for whatever reason and they sign you up for a hula hoop competition, get right with God. That's all I'm saying.
Oh my God. I mean, I'm just glad you survived.
You and me both.
Yeah, you must be breaking out in sweat at the sight of a hula hoop now.
It is definitely a traumatic trigger. It is nestled deep within my central nervous system, and I can never go to Hawaii. Let's put it that way. There's too much.
So this is actually relevant to a theme around these kind of hobbies, because so for me, picking up these little hobbies has helped me ease my way into writing the big stuff. Like, how, because I used to feel so terrified of starting any kind of creative project. I felt like it just felt so intensely vulnerable. And it's the same. I know a lot of people who say they'll never learn a musical instrument, or they can't draw, or they can't sing. And I think it brings up that same level of nervous system fear for us as being charged up by a bull whilst in a hula hoop. But the simple fact is that a lot of us are feeling that level of fear around a hobby that we might really just enjoy, because we're afraid of being rejected and laughed at by the tribe. Like, and so we're equating this really ancient fear of being rejected by the group of people where our survival depends on staying in, with trying out a hobby that interests us. So I think we need to realize that that's what's happening in our bodies, and then find a way to wiggle around that fear.
That's tough. It's that same idea of taming the animal. It's that same place of that morning dread. It's all from that same place of you're in danger. I'm here to protect you. So don't get up on stage and speak because you're in danger. And if they don't like you, my evolution has brought us to the point of we're going to die. We'll be cast out of the tribe and we are going to die. So don't give that best man speech or you're going to die if they don't laugh. This is what the brain says. It's crazy.
Yeah, I guess that's where dread comes from, right? It's like that's where all these really dark, heavy emotions come from. It's like our body on some level believes that if we do these things that we are at danger of dying. And but then we end up kind of stuck in this miserable place because we're not doing the things that really help us feel alive. So then we end up in the gray zone of life, where we're not doing things that make us feel fulfilled and joyful and make us feel like we're squeezing all the juice out of life. So it's important to realize that's how it works and that's what happens. But there are ways that you can recondition your body and your brain to do the thing. And that's why there's this phrase from that book, feel the fear and do it anyway, because that's what it takes the first few times. But then eventually you stop feeling the fear and you just do the thing.
And that's it. And that's the question, right? Is how do we rewrite our stories? How do we get to, because we cannot rewrite our stories if we're stuck in that place of fear. It can't exist. Fear will keep us in the same story because it's comfortable. We may not like it, but we're comfortable there. So how do we get out of that? How do we shake free and say, I'm going to write a brand new chapter, which will not be anchored to the previous ones?
I think it's knowing that your story can change and that your self perception can change. And the number one tip that I have for this is stop self deprecating, stop talking yourself down all the time and telling people, oh, I'm not very good at that. Or, oh, I could never do that. I don't know. In the UK, we have a serious problem with that. I think in the States, it's a bit less of an epidemic.
Yes.
But still, I think, yeah, we need to look at how we're talking about ourselves, because we're creating a story about ourselves every time we do that.
Oh yeah, we have the opposite problem here, and it's so interesting how I've learned this over the past few years, getting to know so many folks from the UK, so many folks from Australia who share very similar type of cultural, almost pathology in some ways, and this I think you call it tall poppy syndrome, right?
Yes, yeah. We like to chop those tall poppies down. People don't get too high above their station. That's how we still have a class system here in the UK.
That's so fascinating because, here it's the complete opposite. They say there are no poor people in America, only temporarily embarrassed millionaires.
Yeah.
And I, there's a part of me that really does love that, because there is a feeling here of unlimited possibility. And that is so, at least there used to be, very much woven into the cultural ether. And what's so interesting here is that you find that among pretty much every socioeconomic group. And so you look at, what I think particularly in the early 90s hip hop scene that was born in the US and the inner cities. And you look at a lot of these artists, and these folks came from dire circumstances. They came from extreme poverty, extreme violence, drug abuse, broken homes. And yet you look at the music, you look at the message, it was, I'm going to get it out of here. I'm going to be big. I'm going to make it. I'm going to do this. And this grandiosity associated with it. And it's so woven in. The rich here want to get just richer. Every person middle class here is going to hit the lottery or is going to start a business and is going to be enormous. But yet that also leads to a narcissism here that is widespread, and a delusional narcissism that's associated with it. So how do we find somewhere between that tall poppy self-deprecation of, well, I can't do a damn thing, to I'm already the greatest thing that ever existed ever, and you're all just going to bow before my feet? Like, how do we find that sweet spot in there?
Oh yeah, that's so interesting, because I love that entrepreneurial spirit, and like like a scene like 90s hip hop, that they're creating something out of nothing, like creating like an entire $1 billion like section of the music industry, like from absolutely nothing, like all of that originality. Because I think that is how the universe really is. Like if you believe something, you can create it, like given enough time and enough energy and effort. But yeah, we need to find somewhere in the middle. And for me, it comes back to connection. Like, what are you creating all of this for? Like, what is the point of wealth just for the sake of accumulation? Because the research shows that above a certain wealth bandwidth, above a certain wealth band, you don't get any happier. Your well-being doesn't increase, like beyond quite a modest amount of money, really. So it's like, what are you doing it all for? Are you doing it because you are motivated by a clear and true purpose and a desire to make an impact and help others? Or are you doing it just to prove how good you are at collecting coins?
Yeah. And you can be good at collecting coins, and a lot of people are, and yet it is unfulfilling at the end of the day, because that whatever, the it we're all looking for, that's not it.
That's
And
not it. You're just gonna end up like with a drinking problem and with like 4 failed marriages and with all of the things that happen to the mega wealthy when they're not fulfilled. Because we're all looking for fulfillment at the end of the day.
I see you've met my my aunts, uncles, and cousins. So, I love this comment here. And I think this is so relatable to so many of us. We reject compliments, and particularly in a society like the UK, where you have that tall poppy syndrome, and you give somebody a compliment, the reflexive thing is, oh no, you're downplaying it immediately. And yet you want to, like, but say it again. What was it? Come on. Yeah.
Wow, I love that. Love the vulnerability of that, Lonnie. And I totally relate to that because I used to do exactly the same thing. I think, we all love being complimented. We're desperate to hear what people think about us. But then, yeah, if we deflect, like, oh no, I'm not really,
Mhm.
or like, oh, she's way more, like, like, have
Yeah.
you seen her? But it's like when you say thank you and you actually just take it in, you're allowing that compliment to become a part of your interior self perception. And you're
Mm.
also showing appreciation for the fact that the person took the time to say that about you. So, it's a beautiful
Yeah.
practice. And it's something that
Love
we
that.
can do all the time when we're hanging out with people, like just get used to accepting the good that people have to say about us.
That's so great. It's not just for you, it's for them too. Because if you deny the compliment they give you, you're like saying, well, your perception sucks. You don't you don't recognize what's good. You think this is good. This isn't good. What are you talking about? And then suddenly they're thinking, well, okay, maybe it wasn't good. I don't know. I'm thinking, and you see, you say to somebody, that was brilliant. Like, nah, it sucked. Like,
Yeah,
wow.
that's it. So you're
What?
disagreeing with me.
What?
Yeah, and we love to give compliments. We love to give gifts that are well received. Like
Mhm.
we love to give a gift and for someone to say thank you so much. It's so lovely to receive that. So the more that you show appreciation when someone says something, the more likely you are to receive future compliments and
Yes.
to have the future boost to your self-esteem. And I think, you were talking about sort of this like inflated narcissistic kind of ego posturing. And to me, that's very different to like self esteem that's built from
Mhm.
the ground up.
Yeah.
When you sort of have your priorities straight and you stay humble at the same time, you stay oriented to the things that matter in life at the same time as constructing a version of yourself that is supremely confident and can walk into any room and get stuff done.
That is incredible. The power that's associated with that, being able to just receive it. Reminds me of that scene in Wayne's World where the guy was walking up to everybody saying, I love you, man. And nobody knew how to respond. And then at the end, Garth just got it right. He said, just say thank you. That was it. And by not saying thank you, they almost drove the van off the road. And it's so simple. It's as simple as that. Just say thank you.
Garth is so wise. Yeah,
God's
so
the
wise.
best. He knows. He knows everything. With him as always is Garth. The sidekick often knows more than the main character does. That's really true. And it is a double-edged sword. Does their point of view matter or give meaning, really? So it's, do we need them for validation, or is it just, do we see you? Like, thank you. Thank you.
Oh, yeah, this is the tricky flip side for
It
sure.
is.
So when do you start unhooking from needing all of that validation from the outside world? And that's been something that's been a big struggle for me, because I think if you're only creating projects because you're seeking the outside world to tell you you've done a good job now, and you're actually valuable after all, don't worry about it, then you won't validate your own taste and your own perspective enough to actually do the creative work that you actually want to do.
That's it. Sister Act 2, Whoopi Goldberg said, if you get out of bed every day and you can't think of doing anything but singing, you're a singer. That's it. And it's not about who's going to give you a round of applause, who's going to give you a standing ovation, who's going to give you a record deal. It's about the fact that there's nothing else in this world you want to do more than singing. You're a singer. And if you feel that way about writing, you're a writer. If you feel that way about painting, you're a painter. You feel that way about gambling, you should probably call a hotline and get some help. But other than that,
It
follow the
took me a
heat.
really long time to get there, just this obsession with, but I've got to write something that's going to do really well because
Mm,
that's going to make me feel like I'm good enough and like I've been a success in life. Like, when I've got that best-selling novel, then I will feel good enough. And I think it just took me to get to a point in life to realize I will never create a work that is worth reading unless I learn how to do it for me. And
yes.
they say you need to write the story you want to read. So, you need to get to know yourself enough to be like, what do I like? What kind of stories do I like? What kind of settings do I like? what's going to make me laugh my ass off when I write it, what's going to make me cry, and then write that. Just trust that, like, it's getting to grips with your own tastes and your own preferences, and tuning
Lean
into that.
in.
Then that's the uniqueness that you have to offer as well, right?
Yeah. What do you love? What makes you happy? What brings you joy? I'm asking you. I'm
Well,
asking the people in the comments too. What do you love?
share it
What
as
brings
well.
you joy? I'll start with you, Anna.
Start with me. So what brings me joy is getting outside into nature. I got into foraging a few years ago, eating stuff off trees and from the ground and plants. And so what brings me joy is learning more about the world outside and just getting out there and realizing that we live on this insanely beautiful planet that is essentially our playground, and just spending time appreciating it makes me feel really joyful.
That's beautiful. I love that. What do I love? Sister Act 2. How could you not? How could anybody not? It gets dogged a lot, but I'm going to stand up for it right here, right now. I am planting my stake in the sand, and I'm saying anybody who's got something to say about Sister Act 2, I'll meet you in the parking lot. We'll settle it over there. It's a great movie. It is a sequel that really speaks to the soul of the franchise without going to. Anyway, that's a whole different episode. But yes, and there is no there. It's all one. It's all connected. That's it. It's as simple as that. And playgrounds are fun. And this is a giant playground. That's what this is. And I tell you what's another giant playground, the George Monty live podcast, which is coming up now on LinkedIn. So if all of you are not connected with George Monty, now's the time. Check out his LinkedIn page. He has an amazing guest on today, Aliana Kali. Both of them were guests on this show. So if you watch this show, you'll know both George and Aliana. They're going to be chopping it up right now. So head on over there. And Anna, is there anything that you want to leave our guests with today?
I think I want to leave everybody with the idea that, we're often thinking about the future, right? This thing that we're going to achieve, and this thing we've got booked into the calendar. But our lives become really full when we think about, how can I just enjoy today more? How can you optimize any little stretch of time that you have for yourself to do something that makes you feel nourished, or that makes you laugh, whatever it is? Like, put some music on while you're doing the washing up, or have that special little bedtime moment for yourself. So when you start treating yourself like the main character, like that player one in your own video game, then everything changes, and you get to just enjoy all these little pockets of time and have that amazing relationship with yourself. So I think that's the kind of perspective that's changed this reality for me.
I love it. And if you want to learn more about our delightful guest today, connect with Anna Herber on LinkedIn and check out our website, insightcopywriting.co.uk. Learn more about her and her amazing business and how she can help you really find your voice, find your true north, tell the world who you are, and reconnect with who you are on your own. Anna, I cannot thank you enough for coming on today. Hope you have the most amazing time out in Devon and the next stop on your month-long journey of self-discovery, memoir writing, and Lord knows what else.
It's always a pleasure, Jeff. I'd come on any time at all. Thanks for this really expansive conversation.
And everybody in the comments, once again, appreciate all of you. Thank you so much for coming out. I love each and every one of you. Mwah! Have an amazing day.
Good luck, everyone.